the essence of my approach is find out where the student really wants to go, the kind of music they want to play. Do they want to improvise? Do they have certain issues that they really want to clear up or gaps in their playing? I've got a few students who are have pretty strong ears, but their sense of rhythm, the timing with their strumming and the way that they feel the time needs work. I've got some whose rhythm is really strong, but their sense of pitch and hearing melodies and improvising, that's their area that they need to focus on. So I feel that if I were to ram everyone through a step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a linear model that's the same for everyone, I'm going to have students spending a lot of time on stuff that they're not interested in or is not really directly related to where they want to go. And since everyone has limited practice time, although we all know practice is the key to the whole thing with proper guidance, we need to focus on the things most efficiently that will most efficiently get you where you want to go. Here's some topics that I really like to cover and cover with virtually everyone, and there's a certain way in which all these things will be covered by everyone. Ear training, theory, rhythmic abilities and skills, improvisation, technique, tunes. All those will basically be touched on by everyone, or almost everyone, but in varying degrees. So let me go over those one at a time real briefly. One main area that I work into almost all of my teaching whenever possible is development of the ear. You've heard it referred to as ear training. And it can be done. People who don't think that they have a good ear or can't hear anything or can't discern between different musical materials, be they chord types or chord changes or intervals, scales. It can be strengthened, it can be developed. There's exercises we can do, and we can try to integrate it with other things you're working on. I think that's really the key to having more fun playing, because it's like understanding a language which you're speaking, as opposed to just reading it off of a paper. And so that's critical, to really spend a bunch of time getting that up to speed. A lot of my students who like to improvise, we work that into the picture by having them copy solos, copy licks, riffs from their favorite players, be it B.B. King or Buddy Guy or Jimi Hendrix or Chet Atkins or Doc Watson or Wes Montgomery, whatever style suits your fancy, basically. Another area that's pretty important for a lot of people, not all. There are some people who I have found it would be kind of a misdirection and waste of their time to spend too much time on this, is theory, which is kind of like the math behind music, and that sounds pretty dry, but if you integrate it with the ear, understanding theoretically what the materials are, and then getting your ear to hear this stuff, and then getting the cognitive side of it out of the way, where you're not analyzing, you're just hearing, theory is very, very beneficial. And you use theory when you're determining what materials to use to improvise. You can use it when you're figuring out tunes by ear off of CDs. You can use it when you're writing tunes. Use it when you're listening. It's got a pretty broad set of applications. Another key aspect of music that I like to spend a good amount of time on is that of rhythm. And although I'm not talking about rhythm guitar per se, which is the generic term used to describe chordal accompaniment, there's obviously a big overlap. And rhythm can be as simple as just feeling a pulse strongly, or it can be as complex as discerning and understanding polyrhythms, rhythms superimposed on other rhythms, especially important for jazz players and players who are playing more modern kinds of music. So we really make sure that that's something that the student can feel really well and is very comfortable with, and is comfortable creating, using different rhythms at their disposal. So sense of pulse, being comfortable at different tempos, and it's something that just really will impact your playing on all levels, being able to have good, strong time and a good, solid sense of rhythm, and always a sense of your bearings within the time flow, knowing where you are, knowing where beat one is, knowing how what you play is related to that beat one and to the ongoing pulse in general. Improvisation is something I really love doing and teaching, whether it be in a jazz style or rock style, blues, R&B, a bit of country here and there. And at least half of my students are interested in improvising. There is a handful of different skills that all kind of come to bear on being able to improvise your own solos, and some of those I've touched on. Ear work, being able to hear what the chords sound like as they pass by, being able to choose notes and scales accordingly. Theory also is a good tool to make those choices as well. But only with your ear are you really going to choose sounds that are expressive, as opposed to something you read out of a book, and this scale will work, or these notes will work. That's fine, it'll sound passable, but it won't really express much because you're not the one really in charge of choosing and applying those sounds as you go through your solo. So, ear work will help your improvisation, is vital to your improvisation. Theoretical knowledge is good on some level. There's a big spectrum there from knowing some very basic theory, which will suit a lot of people, to very complex sets of chords and scales that relate to one another used for a more modern jazz application. And I can take it anywhere in that spectrum that you want to go, or that I can make a case that it will help your playing to go. Technique, you've got to have some technique in order to improvise, so we fold that in as well. Technique is another area that we definitely will touch on. It applies to everyone at every style of music, and varying levels of technique are needed for different styles. Someone who just wants to strum a few basic open chords is not going to need the technique of someone who wants to play modern jazz and really be able to get all over the neck and play laterally and skip strings, things like that. So once again, as a lot of these other topics, there's a big continuum. I try to target the allocation of time we spend and that I suggest the students spend per what their goals are. You know, another case of let's hone it in like a laser beam on where it is you want to go, and not err on the side of having you spend a ton of time playing scales when you barely even want to improvise anyway, per example. I do like to exemplify as many of these aspects of music as I've talked about within the realm of tunes, songs. Be they Beatle tunes or Miles Davis tunes, if you're a jazzer, blues tunes, if you like Buddy Guy and you want to improvise in that style. As I had mentioned before, I've had students come in and they were studying with teachers privately or in a storefront or in some other institutional setting, and they were really kind of disgruntled because the teacher had them working on tunes that they did not like. And I'm a huge fan of letting the student, whenever possible, you guys bring in the tunes. You suggest the tunes. Now, I might make a case why a certain tune would really help your sense of rhythm or your ability to hear certain kinds of chord changes. But in general, I think the student should pick the tunes because I've found you all practice more and you'll have more fun with it. And so what part of my job is, per my kind of customizable framework, is to figure how can I teach you some theory with that Green Day tune, or how can I teach you some aspects of rhythm with that Wes Montgomery jazz tune. As I had mentioned before, I do have some books I work out of. I really like them. I've got books about rhythm, harmony, improvisation. Got some good play-along CDs that I like to use, which I find to be a lot of fun. Whenever we can work within the confines of songs that you enjoy to exemplify various musical principles, it's a twofer. You're left knowing a tune and knowing more about theory and having better technique or having better ears as a result of it. So I like working that way. So that's a general synopsis of the way I like to work. I would encourage any of you who are interested, give me a call. Thanks for listening and watching, and I hope to hear from you.